All right, I'm going to start on number 1. We're going to look at some application problems for it. Adding and subtracting decimals and fractions mainly. There's one problem that deals with integers, and that's number 18. But mainly these will be decimals and fractions. I'll spend about 15 to 20 minutes going over just a few of these, and everything that's uncircled you're going to do for classwork today. All right, so let's start off with number 1. We're going to write an expression for it and find a solution. The temperature in Delaware was negative 8 and 9/10 degrees Fahrenheit at midnight. So that's where it started. It changed by negative 13 and 5/10 degrees Fahrenheit by morning. So I'm going to put start here. The change was a negative, which indicates that it dropped. What was the temperature in the morning? So I'm going to start off with negative 8 and 9/10 degrees. It dropped 13 and 5/10 degrees. So I could put minus 13 and 5/10, or I could use this number here and put negative 8 and 9/10 plus negative 13 and 5/10 degrees. Now the thing is, because that number was negative, I know that it was a drop. So when I used the word drop, I did not put the negative on the 13 because I used the word drop. Now if you look at it that way, the word drop will indicate you write a minus sign. But if you don't look at it in terms of the word dropped, you must use that negative on the 13 and write it with a plus sign in the middle. Plus, negative. But either way, this is left and left, left and left. Or you can say these are negatives and these are negatives. These are negatives. These are negatives. Especially if you use the bar, okay? So that would be the same. We're going to add those up. Make sure when you add decimals, you line them up. You may fill in the empty spaces with zeros. Let's add. That's 14, 12, carry the 1, 2. But it started off in the negative and it dropped some more. So we know the temperature is still in the negative. But you can also look at the signs. They both go left, for they're all negative. So the answer, of course, is negative. Negative 22 and 4/10 degrees. And it's in terms of Fahrenheit, guys. Let me erase this so I can get my F here for Fahrenheit. And that is all you do. Now, I want you to be careful when you're doing these, because at some point I'm gonna go over those that read as distance problems and as difference problems. But keep in mind, if it reads as difference, it could be with or without order, and distance. But both of those are similar because they both use subtraction. One is just subtraction with absolute value and may not involve with absolute value, and that's distance. And the order doesn't matter. And the other one is subtraction, which is difference, that may or may not involve order, guys. But if it's not difference or distance, if it's not difference or distance, you're going to write these problems from left to right. And the sign of the number depends on the keyword, okay? If it's not difference or distance, you're going to make sure you write it from left to right. And the sign of the number, or whether you put a minus or a plus, depends on the keyword, like ascend, descend, gain, lose. Let's take a look at number 2. All right, a scuba diver is swimming at an altitude of negative 38 and 625,000 meters. Then ascends 12 and 4/10 meters toward the water surface. What's the diver's new location? So where did the diver start? Well, first of all, I don't see difference or distance, or nothing that indicates that I'm doing a difference or distance problem. So I'm going to write this thing from left to right. All right. So started off here. Ascends means up, or that this number should be positive. So I'm going to start at negative 38 and 625 meters. I'm going to add, because it's ascend, 12 and 4/10 meters. Nothing that indicates that I should put a negative on that. Ascends mean the number is positive. All right, you also could have written it with a double negative here. I don't care which one you use, because a double negative is essentially the same as a plus. But this is negative, this is positive, or you can say it goes left and right. At any rate, those are different, so I'm going to subtract, put my larger group on top, and a larger group of negatives, line my decimals up, filling empty spaces with zeros, and subtract. It's more negatives than positives, or I can say it's more left and right. So my final answer is negative. And we would expect that. He's still underwater. He didn't ascend all the way. And put meters. All right, guys. I'm going to pause the video for a second, okay? Okay. Let's go to something like number 6, dealing with fractions. A submarine is navigating at a depth of negative 40 and 2/3 kilometers, and then descends another 10 and a fifth kilometers into the ocean. So what's this new depth? Okay, I'm going to write this from left to right. Nothing in here that indicates difference or distance. We're going to start here at negative 40 and 2/3 kilometers. Descends means that I need to subtract or either add a negative number, okay? So I can write it as minus 10 and a fifth, or I can add the negative. Okay, but they're both negatives, or I can say they go left and left. But at any rate, they're the same, so I'm going to add. But before I add fractions, I need a common denominator. And the common denominator here is 15. So I'm going to multiply this by 5 and that by 5. This by 3 and that by 3. So I'll end up with negative 40 and 10/15 plus negative 10 and 3/15. Now I can add. And when you add, you don't necessarily have to stack your mixed numbers. The only time I really want you stacking mixed numbers is if it's subtraction. Subtraction with a mixed number or subtraction with whole numbers, okay? You need to stack them because it helps you to see whether or not you need to regroup. But I'm adding here. So I'm just going to go ahead and add these as negative 50 and 13/15. And it's in terms of what unit? Kilometers, guys. No naked numbers, but closing your numbers. These are the close, okay? In other words, you got to put a unit. You got to tell me what. Just don't give me the number. So that's negative 50 and 13/15 kilometers. Okay, let's take a look at 8. The temperature in Quebec is negative 9 and 5/8 degrees Fahrenheit. It's 12.5 degrees warmer in Newfoundland. What is the temperature in Newfoundland or Newfoundland? You can pronounce it either way. All right, so we'll take a look. Nothing that indicates that we're doing difference or distance. So you're going to write this same from left to right. Okay. I know that in Quebec, this is the temperature. But it's 12.5 degrees warmer in Newfoundland, which means I just need to add. Warmer means I need to add. So it's plus that many degrees warmer. Okay, now, so I'm going to put plus positive, guys. Doesn't mean I add the two mixed numbers, but it means I add a positive 12 and a half because it's warmer. And once I find a common denominator, it's going to, I'll be able to subtract. Now, in this case, I'm going to be subtracting. Let me do the work over here. Negative 9 and 5/8 plus 12 and a half. The common denominator is 8. You can multiply this by 1, multiply this by 4. You could have just left that alone because 8 is already what you need. But now this is negative, that's positive, or you can say this is left and that's right. At any rate, you're going to subtract. When you subtract mixed numbers, please put the larger group on top and stack them. So I'm going to put 12 and 4/8 on top, minus 9 and 5/8. This helps you to see whether or not you need to regroup or can you just do regular subtraction. Well, you can subtract 9 from 12. You can do 12 minus 9, but you cannot start off with 4 and take away 5. So in this particular case, I need to regroup. 12 is going to become an 11, and I'm going to add 8/8 to 4/8, making it 12/8. Or you can take this number, the 8, and add it to the 4 to get the new numerator of 12. This I just transfer back over. And I'm going to make sure I do this a little better. This became an 11, and then I added that 1 or 8/8 to that, so that became 12/8. Now, some of you, I showed yesterday this little shortcut. You take your denominator and add it to your numerator. 8 plus 4 is 12. It gives you the new numerator of the regrouped fraction. Okay, but I'm going to start subtracting. 11 minus 9 is 2. 12 minus 5 is 7. And it's more right or more positives. So it's positive 2 and 7/8 degrees Fahrenheit is the temperature in Newfoundland. Okay, I'm going to do a few more. A 28 and a third foot tree has roots that extend 12 and 5/6 feet under the ground surface. How far, which is distance, guys, how far must water travel to go from the roots to the top of the tree's branches? So you got your tree. You got these branches. And then you got this root system. So I want to know how far they must travel from the roots all the way to the top to reach the tip of the branches. In other words, I need this distance right in here. That's the distance I need. Well, I know at the top, and this is on the ground. Of course, you all know the roots. We hope roots grow underneath, but sometimes we see they don't. All right, but we're going to assume all these roots grow underneath the ground. All right, you got 28 and a third foot tree has roots that extend 12 and 5/6 feet under. Because it says under, we expect this distance to be, okay, it's at negative 12 and 5/6 feet. And then this tree is this tall, so from here to here, it is 28 and a third feet. And I say from here to there because I'm talking about from where the tree starts growing above ground to the very top. That's the distance. And then here, this is also a distance from where the tree grows on top to where the roots grow under the bottom. But at any rate, we know this is positive and this is actually negative because of the word under. How far? Well, because it asks me how far, it indicates distance, so I need to make sure I use subtraction. Now, it doesn't have to be from left to right. It could be left to right, right to left. The order in which you subtract when you're dealing with distance does not matter because you're going to use absolute value. But I'm just going to subtract from left to right. Minus, okay, and I'm going to color code my minus sign. And of course, my other number, if I subtract the negative, must go inside of parentheses. And because that number is negative, I'm going to put it in parentheses. The parentheses help separate the negative sign for the word under from the subtraction sign for the word distance. Okay. And there's my absolute value. Now you could have written it this way. Negative 12 and 5/6 minus 28 and 1/3. All right, now here, that's a plus, so that goes right, that goes right. Or you can say both of these are positives. So I'm going to add. You could have said that's a negative, or both of them go left. So at any rate, you're going to add. But I'm going to work this first one here. I need a common denominator. So I have the absolute value of 28 and 1/3. I'm going to multiply by 2 because the common denominator is 6. This is already over 6, guys. So I just keep it. Or you can do times 1. It's up to you. And I'm going to erase this because I need room. So this ends up being 28 and 2/6 minus negative 12 and 5/6. Use absolute value. Don't forget that. And I'm going to add these two. Because I'm adding, I'm not going to stack them. Again, you only really need to stack them when you're subtracting with mixed numbers and whole numbers, okay? To see if you need to regroup or not. So that's going to be 40 and 7/6. But I have a problem. 7/6 is an improper fraction. So let's see how many 7s I can get out of 6. One whole group with a remainder of 1. So basically, 40 and 7/6, it ends up being 41 and 1/6. 1/6. This 1 got added to the 40. 40 plus the whole number 1 is 41. And then I still have a remainder of 1. 1 out of 6. And all of these are really supposed to be an absolute value. And the absolute value of this is just 41 and a 6. And it's in terms of feet, guys. That's the distance between the two. Now, if you would have used the other expression, it just would have been negative 41 and a 6. But the absolute value of it still positive 41 and a 6. And that is all you do. Okay, let's go down and look at one more. The lowest recorded temperature in Georgia was negative 17 and 8/10 degrees. And that was recorded in the 1940, guys. It got pretty cold. The highest temperature ever recorded was 112.875 degrees in 1983. What is the difference between the coldest and warmest temperature in Georgia? So I'm looking for a difference. It does not have from or to. There's no from or to. So it's difference without order. So I'm simply going to subtract it with starting with the largest number minus the smallest number. Now, if it was difference with order, which is not, if it was difference with order, I had to start from the number at the end and subtract the number from the beginning, okay? But if it's with order, you're going to see from or to in the statement. All right, but this doesn't contain that. The largest number is 112.875 minus 17 and 8/10. And I'm going to put color code here because I like to keep my minus sign separate from the negative on the 17. Of course, the parentheses should also help keep it separate. Anytime you add or subtract the negative, that negative needs to go in parentheses to separate it from the plus or minus symbol. All right, so this is right, or we can say those are positives. This is right, or I can say that these are positives as well. So I'm just going to add them up. Again, when you add decimals, line up the decimal. And I will say this, guys, if you don't see a decimal in a number, but you see a decimal in another one, in the decimal in the number, the problem where you don't see a decimal, please put the decimals at the end. So that's going to be 130 and 675 thousandths. That's a degree. Let me just put the word degree. And this is the entire difference between the coldest and warmest temperature. Or I should put difference in degrees. That will look better. All right, guys, what you're going to do is go back and do all the problems that were not circled. All right, thank you. Or that I didn't do in the video.